Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2026 Puerto Rico Open Full Show. That's right. For the first time in 2026, we're going to have the initial research, the data dive, and the DFS tactics all bundled into one show for the alternate field event in Puerto Rico this week. I've said it many, many times, and I'll say it again throughout this evening. If you're willing to put in the work on these alternate field events, there is a lot of value to be had, especially in the wagering markets, since all of the attention is spent on the main event, probably rightfully so, but there is, again, a whole lot of value to be had in the wagering market and in the DFS market for the alternate field event for the Puerto Rico Open this week. We have a lot to cover, as we're going to try and get 3 shows in one, so let's not waste any time. All statistics provided tonight and moving forward are from Fantasy National and the Rabbit Hole over at BetSperts. Go check out the Rabbit Hole. They are acquiring Fantasy National. They have everything you need to make those prime and best wagers. Lineup optimizer to finalize your lineups and make sure you have everything you need to get your 6 of 6s and then eventually vault up the leaderboard on the weekend to win those big GPPs. Go check out the Rabbit Hole. You won't regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where yesterday I posted some research regarding the Arnold Palmer, and today I posted some research regarding the Puerto Rico Open. Both of those have exploded today in terms of viewership, so I'm very, very thankful for that. But if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show, so that'll be out tomorrow evening after the Arnold Palmer Invitational DFS Tactics show. So if you're gonna see my betting card both for the API and for the Puerto Rico Open. You're going to see the players I'm using most often in my lineups for both the API and the Puerto Rico Open. You want to see that every week, give me a follow over at X. And then for Gabe's social media, make sure you give him a follow. His handle's in the description as well, because that's where we put our 2026 Picks Challenge, our detailed write-ups for that. He has taken a commanding lead early this season. I'm trying to cut into that lead. The Cognizant wasn't the best. I know I had Austin Smotherman in terms of Mad Scientist play, so I at least got 1 point there. But we're going to try and cut into his lead. And I got a great opportunity this week with 2 tournaments. But if you want to see our detailed write-ups, give him a follow over on social media, show him some support, and subscribe to his article. Because every Wednesday he puts out his deluxe version of it, which includes projected ownerships, his top plays and values. You really are missing out if you aren't subscribed to it. Lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. I am trying to keep everything Puerto Rico open tonight. If you do have a question on the API, I'll be more than happy to answer it. But we are focused on the alternate field event, the Puerto Rico Open. So tell me what you know about the field. Tell me what you know about the course. Who's your favorite? All of that. And, of course, at the end, we're going to cover the DFS Tactics portion. We'll start making some lineups and all of that. So let's get right into it. Let's cover the initial research, do the data dive, and figure out our strategies and tactics for the 2026 Puerto Rico Open. And we are going to start, as we always do, normally I say on a Sunday evening, but in the initial research portion of the week with the GCSA tournament fact sheet for the Puerto Rico Open. Good evening, Echoes. Thanks for jumping in chat. Let's make some money. I love these alternate field events. I said in the intro, and I've said it a couple times throughout this week, there's a lot of value to be had in these alternate field events because all of the attention and money is going into the main event or the main tournament of the week. Rightfully so. The biggest names in the game are playing the main tournament. So there's a lot of value to be had in these alternate field events if you're willing to put in the work. And that's what we're here for this evening. But thanks for jumping in chat, Echoes. Very much appreciated. We are at Grand Reserve Golf Club in Rio Grande, Puerto Rico. Sits right on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. This is originally a Tom Kite design back in 2006. Not a whole lot of data here. We don't get shot link data, which is the main drawback trying to handicap this tournament. This is, technically an international event, so there's no shot link available to us. So there's very little information we have, but we'll cover what we can before going into the DFS Tactics portion. Grand Reserve is a long, traditional par 72, 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s, measuring over 7,500 yards. In fact, this is a longer course than Bay Hill. Now, it's not harder than Bay Hill. Don't get what I'm saying twisted. This is longer than Bay Hill. 7,500 yards, just a shade over it. Much like the rest of the courses that we see in the Caribbean, we are on paspalum greens and paspalum throughout the course. This is a grass that thrives in heat, can withstand the hot summers that the Caribbean produces. We are on specifically sea dwarf paspalum, which this is the first time I have seen sea dwarf paspalum specifically, but we'll look at paspalum greens whenever we can. Paspalum throughout the rest of the course. What little rough there is only 2 inches long, so not a whole lot of rough, and that's very common in these Caribbean events. A lot of times these fairways are very, very wide, very forgiving, very little rough because they either run up to native area or, in this case, the ocean. There are some zoysia trees and bunker surrounds, not very many. There's quite a few bunkers on the course, 56 to be exact. But, nothing in terms of like native area, not a whole lot of rough. The greens, a little bit different than other Caribbean events. You think about like El Cardinal at Diamante in the fall. Those greens are about 8,700 square feet. Vedanta has very large greens. Same with El Camaleon when the Mayakoba was there. These are still large greens, but not significantly large. They're about 6,500 square feet in terms of average size, whereas the average tour green is about 6,000 square feet. So these are larger, but not by a whole lot, unlike what you would see elsewhere in the Caribbean. As I said, 56 holes with water, 56 holes with water in play. Wow. 56 bunkers, 13 holes with water in play, although you will see the rabbit hole disagrees with that a little bit, at least for professionals. There's about 8 or 9 that comes into play. So there's a look at the details of Grand Reserve Golf Club for the Puerto Rico Open. Again, nothing specific here in terms of notoriety, except other than we are on paspalum. We're not going to be looking at any Tom Kite designs. We could take a look at long courses. We'll get into that. And of course, paspalum, as I mentioned. There's a look at the tournament fact sheet. We're going to jump to, and I have Windfinder up, but I'm going to wait for a little bit. Let's go ahead and go to the rabbit hole and take a look at the field for the Puerto Rico Open. As of right now, there's been several field changes, but the rabbit hole is on top of that. This is the current field. If you take a look at performance just in 2026, some notable players here this week. Rasmus Højgaard is the top price player and the tournament favorite. Ricky Castillo coming off a fantastic Cognizant. Seamus Power, Christian Bezuidenhout, Rasmus Nergaard Peterson, Sean Perry, Sam Ryder, Blades Brown is here, Davis Thompson, Michael Brennan, Austin Eckroat. A few names here this week, but I mean, this is an alternate field event for a reason. These guys did not qualify for the API. Let's go ahead and jump to the rabbit holes description of Grand Reserve just very, very quickly before we take a look at the weather. As I was mentioning, long course, Caribbean International Tom Kite design. This rabbit hole lists this as easy. I'm going to quarrel with that slightly. I would say this is average in terms of difficulty. It's certainly not difficult. It's definitely not hard. But I don't know about easy, because you look here, par 3s are average, par 4s are average, par 5s are average in terms of scoring. And even if we take a look at these prior winners, let me bring back or get to last year. Now, last year, Carl Phillips, 26 under. That was significantly easy. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. You had 3 players breaking minus 20. It was very easy last year. Bryce Garnett 2 years ago wins at 19 under. So didn't even crack 20. Nico Echeverria 3 years ago, only player to surpass 20 under. He was at 21. Batia at 19. And then Lashley at 16 under. Ryan Brim 20 under. And he ran away from the field. Grace 19 under. Victor Hovland 20 under. So 20 under is certainly on the easier side. I don't like this nomenclature of easy here. I would label it as average. That's me nitpicking the rabbit hole here a little bit. But it's certainly not difficult. That's what I want to stress to you on that. You see 62 bunkers, 8 holes with, or 8 water danger holes past Palom. And typically in the Caribbean, especially on the coast, these places like El Cardinal, Vedanta to a lesser extent, Kapalua would fit into this. They're always kept slow because of the wind. So very, very slow greens throughout majority of your Caribbean events. This says average. This is a little bit larger than average in terms of green size past Palom throughout the course. 2-inch long rough, that is fairly short. It is not difficult to play out of. This does say off the tee club type mixed, and I guess that's because you have maybe a couple of par 4s that you could play a little bit more prudent, as in like the short par 4 third, excuse me. You could hit like 3-wood or an iron here. You have 430 on the back 9 that could play a little bit shorter. Play a little bit longer if you hit 3-wood or something to make sure you're in the fairway. I would still consider this pretty driver extensive because there's not a whole lot of trouble around here. As you can see, missed fairway penalty, low. Rough penalty, low. Gain strokes off the tee, it's pretty easy. To gain strokes with the approach is easy. Putting is average in terms of difficulty, just because these greens are slow. Players aren't used to that. With the wind, it can be an issue. Around the green stuff here is pretty darn easy, and we'll see that really doesn't have a whole lot of play. I didn't factor it into my mixed condition model. We take a look at the scorecards just very quickly. You have a couple holes that can be difficult. Not a whole lot of doubles, other than maybe the par 4 13th, 3% double here, double bogey rate. But not a whole lot of doubles. It's just bogeys that can creep up if you're not on top of your game. Par 4 14th, 459, hardest hole in the course, plays a little bit more than a tenth of a shot over par. Mid-length par 4 7th, 448. But the length of the course, much like Bay Hill, really comes in the par 3s. Here at Grand Reserve, you've got a 203 par 3, 236, 192, and 202. Having said that, 202 actually plays under par. So they're not all that difficult, but not easy either. The par 5s, interesting split of par 5s here. You have 2 pretty short par 5s, 547 and 535. Very good birdie opportunities, playing more than a half a shot, almost a half a shot under par. But the 2 par 5s on the back are very long, 600 and 630. You can see eagle rates of 1.2%, just over 1%. They're decent birdie chances, more than a third of the time birdies, exactly a third of the time birdies. But, eagles are not going to happen very often on the 2 back 9 par 5s. No course info like approach and off the tee, strokes gained. Again, no shot link data. And if I bring in this chart whoa, hang on. Sorry. Wrong thing that I'm grabbing here. There we go. This is the hole composition chart. And again, this is per the rabbit hole. So, this scorecard here, if we take a look at it just very quickly, good mix of par 3s, 192, 2 between 200 and 225, 1 very long par 3 at 232. You do have a short, not drivable, but 1 short par 4 at 86? Yeah, 386, the par 3 fourth. And then the rest of the par 4s fall between 400 and 500. 5 of the 10 between 400 and 450. 4 of the 10 fall between 450 and 5. And then again, the uniqueness here, par 5s, 2 under 550 and 2 over 600 yards. I did go through Pro Visualizer, and this is what they listed as the proximities or the length of approach shots. All 4 par 5s, I said we're going to get attacked in 2. That may be, misleading. The 2 back 9 par 5s, players might play a little bit more reserved and lay up, which would put them either in the 75 to 100 or 100 to 125. But despite the length of the course, you've got quite a few wedges here at Grand Reserve. As you can see here, you don't really get your long irons tested except for the par 3s. And I don't factor in par 3s on proximity since we can look at par 3s here. So you have more wedges in your hand than what you would think for a long course like Grand Reserve. So I wanted to make sure I showed you the hole composition and the estimated proximities per the rabbit hole and Pro Visualizer. Again, we talked a little bit about the previous leaderboards and what some of these winning scores were. Why I didn't feel all that great using easy relative to par or scoring conditions easy. It certainly was last year, and if we get another winner at 24, 25, 26 under, then I'll start adjusting. But this is the only time it's really done that. I mean, you even go back like Victor 20 under, Martin Trainer 15 under, DA Points 20 under. Like you'll get up into the 20s, low 20s maybe, 20, 21, but it's not a guarantee that you get into the 20 unders. So I have my doubts as to calling this easy. All right, with that, we're going to start turning in towards the data dive portion of the show. Let's take a look at the weather. And the weather for Grand Reserve looks pretty hectic. Again, we are more than a day away, so really all we can look at is Thursday. But even so, I don't see a wave advantage here. Very consistent winds, up near 20 mile an hour in terms of sustained. Gusts, into the mid-20s. Does look like they're going to get rain throughout most of the day Thursday. Looks like they're going to get rain a little bit tomorrow. I don't think they're going to have delays. That is something to be on the lookout for. Friday looks much the same. Sustained winds up in the upper teens, gusts into the 20s. So again, I don't see a wave advantage. If that changes tomorrow, if you're playing DFS or if you're going to wager the Puerto Rico Open, feel free to reach out to me, social media, or in the comments of this show. I'll be more than happy to update you on what the Puerto Rico weather looks like. But the entire tournament looks like it's going to be light rain and very, very windy. Did you see that all Saturday, all Sunday? Yeah, I mean, it's just looking like the conditions don't look like they're going to be very favorable for the Puerto Rico Open. So I'll keep that up. Again, all we can do is look at Thursday in terms of a super forecast, but I'll keep that up in case there are questions. Now let's take a look at a few of these, what I think are going to be some key statistics regarding Grand Reserve and the Puerto Rico Open. First thing we're going to look at, just based on that very, very difficult looking forecast, your top performers in the field at the Puerto Rico Open in moderate and windy conditions, going back to the beginning of last year: Vince Whaley, RNP, Rasmus Nergard Peterson, Jesper Svensson, Chris Ventura, Matt Wallace, Seamus Power, Shooter Sean Yelamaraju, Ricky Castillo, Takumi Kanaya, and Dylan Wu. Those are your top performers in the wind. Players who have not played well in the wind: Paul Waring, Ryan Palmer, Christo Lamprecht, Nick Dunlap, Peter Malnati, Rafael Campos, Matthew Pavone, Austin Cook. Trying to highlight guys that have, enough rounds to make it, significant. James Hahn, Jackson Suber at 7,100, not been good in the wind. Isaiah Salinda, David Ford, Alejandro Tosti, Neil Shipley, Adam Hadwin. So those guys have not been good in the wind past year and 3 months or so. Something else we absolutely want to look at, very true for Grand Reserve, this is a long course. Even though you don't hit a lot of long irons, it is still a long course. So we'll apply that. Your top performers on long and very long courses in the field this week: Vince Whaley. So right off the bat, Vince Whaley, number one total long courses and number one in the wind. Rasmus Nergard Peterson, second, both in the wind and on long and very long courses. Jesper Svensson's up there, top 5 in both. Takumi Kanaya, Chris Ventura, Cameron Champ, Danny Walker, Christian Bezuidenhout, Kieran Van Veek, I believe is how you say that name. It's only 4 rounds, but I will tell you, it's 4 rounds. I didn't think it was going to populate. He finished, I believe, tied for second or tied for fourth at the Puerto Rico Open last year. So, I mean, he played this tournament last year and played it very well. And Jeremy Paul rounds out your top 10 in terms of performance on long and very long courses. In fact, I'm going to take a look. Yeah, so there you go. Kieran Van Veek, tied for fourth last year here. There's a look at your top performers, long and very long courses. Don't want to do it too much because I do want to, mainly talk about the mixed condition model. Let's see. We could take a look at strokes gained total on paspalum surfaces. When greens are paspalum, and I'll expand the time frame here, go 2024, just give guys hopefully enough rounds. How many rounds is this? 30 from Norlander. Still not a whole lot. Let's just go ahead and back it out all the way to 2022. Okay, your top performers on courses with paspalum greens. This isn't a great way to look at this, but about the only way we can, because very few courses with paspalum greens has ShotLink. In fact, the only place that I know of is Vedanta. You see Puerto Rico Open, Corrales, Worldwide Technologies, no ShotLink. So very little data when we start talking about paspalum greens. But your top performers on Paspalum Green surface courses, this isn't putting, this is total performance. Jeremy Paul, Eric Cole, Carson Young, Chan Kim, Justin Lauer, Seamus Power, Chad Ramey, Austin Eckroat, Bo Hostler, and Henrik Norlander. Your top 10 on Paspalum. Okay, anything else we might want to look at here? Very weak and weak fields, maybe. We looked at wind. We looked at long courses. Again, I don't agree with easy and very easy for Puerto Rico, and especially with that forecast. I don't think it's going to be easy this year. We could maybe do weak and very weak field strength. Not necessarily the biggest fan of this one. But when fields are weak and very weak, your top performers, Matty Schmid, Vince Whaley, Rasmus Højgaard, Chris Ventura, Michael Brennan, Takumi Kanaya, RNP, Rasmus Nergard Peterson, Seamus Power, Seabez, Christian Bezadenhout, and Chad Ramey. All right. Very quickly to get into the data dive portion of the show. Let me bring up the Puerto Rico early look file and just take a quick look here at some of these things. Again, Puerto Rico has been played at this course since 2016, so you feel free to go back as far as you wish. Having said that, you'll note that there is no 2018 tournament. That got canceled due to the hurricanes that hit New Orleans as well. Not Katrina. Hurricane Maria, I think, and one other one devastated this area. So no tournament in 2018. But go back as far as you wish. I went back my customary 5 years. Of the players who have played here multiple times, Chad Ramey's been good. ADDC, Adrian Dumont de Chassart has been good. Matty Schmid, 3 for 3, average finish of 16th. Vince Whaley, 3 for 3, average finish of 16th. Bryce Garnett, 5 for 5. He has never missed a cut here. I just jinxed it, but he's never missed a cut here. Norlander's 3 for 3, been very good. Tyler Duncan, Chan Kim. So there's some players who have been pretty darn good around here. I want to show you some of the research that led to what I posted very quickly before we go over to the DFS portion. So let's take a look at the winner matrix for the Puerto Rico Open. This is showing how well a player has performed at the Puerto Rico Open prior to their win. You'll note most players, it's their first time. This is an alternate field event. By the time these guys win, they're generally on to bigger and better things. See Tony Finau. See Victor Hovland. See Nico Echeverria. Carl Phillips, maybe a little bit lesser in extent, but most of the time, these players have been first-time starters here. But I want you to notice something. I want you to notice of the players who have played here multiple times, Bryce Garnett, excellent history, including 2 top 10s and a top 20. Ryan Brim had a previous top 15. Even D.A. Points, way back in 2017, had a previous top 10. Alex Chayka, previous top 15. Look at Scott Brown, George McNeil. So don't write off players if it's their first time. But if someone has played the Puerto Rico Open, make sure they've had a pretty good amount of success. I cut it off at a top 15. Every single past champion who has played the Puerto Rico Open had at least a previous top 15 here. So that was one of the first things I noticed. Let's take a look at their previous outing, shall we? Not a whole lot of consistency among their most recent event in terms of like the major strokes gained. But you see, most of them at least made the cut in their previous tournament before coming to the Puerto Rico Open. The blank here is 2024 from Bryce Garnett, who was playing on the Korn Ferry Tour and then got into the field in 2024 due to all the withdrawals and then wins. So he didn't play any on the PGA Tour in 2024, but majority of these players at least made the cut their previous time out. So at least make sure anyone you're wagering for the Puerto Rico made the cut last time out. And let's take a look at their early season performance. Carl Phillips, not a whole lot here, but he did have a top 40. Talked about Bryce Garnett. He was on the Korn Ferry Tour. 2023, Nico Echeverria. Bunch of missed cuts, but he did have a top 15. This is Ryan Brim. And you see his Korn Ferry Tour performance. He had been playing pretty darn well on the Korn Ferry Tour. And then comes and plays at the Puerto Rico and wins. Top 40 from 2021. That's Brandon Grace. So top 20 at the Genesis. Top 40 at the Pebble Beach. Victor, top 40 Pebble Beach. Every single one of these prior champions had a top 40 in that calendar year, like from the century forward. So in 7 tournaments in 2026, Sony, Amex, Farmers, Waste Management, Pebble Beach, Genesis, and Cognizant. Make sure any guy that you're wagering has had a top 40. So with those 3 criteria alone, just those 3 criteria, made the cut their last time out, top 40 on the PGA Tour, specifically on the PGA Tour, and had a previous top 15 at the Puerto Rico Open if they played it. Narrowed down the field to 6 players. 6. ADDC, Mark Hubbard, Rasmus Nergard Peterson, Chad Ramey, Matty Schmid, and Jimmy Stanger. All fit all 3 criteria. Those 6 players, that's it. These 9 fit the top 40 and making the cut the last time out. They've just never played Puerto Rico Open. And you can't write them off because there's several times there's a first-time winner. So these 9 also fit, considering they've never played Puerto Rico. Zach Bauschow, Seabez, Eric Cole, A.J. Ewert, David Ford, Pontus Nieholm, John Perry, Matthew Pavone, and Sudarshan Yelamaraju. So that gives you a pretty good indication as to what my betting card for the Puerto Rico Open is going to be. So there's a look at some of the data regarding the Puerto Rico Open. Let's now switch our attention and take a look more in terms of a DFS focus. The mixed condition model that I have made for the Puerto Rico Open and Grand Reserve this week, we're going to start with 15% in moderate and windy conditions. Look, we looked at this forecast. This weather is not letting up at all. Thursday through Sunday, it is consistently 18 to 20 mile an hour sustained winds, gusts into the 20s, rain throughout majority of the tournament. It's going to be windy. It's going to be rainy. It's not going to be the most pleasant of conditions. I want to see the players who are good in the wind. 15% in total performance, moderate and windy conditions. 10% off the tee on long and very long courses. There's not a whole lot of trouble around here, so I'm leaning distance, as you can see in the next metric. But when driver is forced into a lot of these players' hands, who can still gain strokes off the tee? who's long, who is, for the most part accurate. Yeah, 10% off the tee, 15% in distance. Pretty important. Even though the rabbit hole calls this mixed club type, I'm thinking that the majority of professionals are just going to be pretty aggressive, take driver as often as they can, 15% driving distance, 15 strokes gain approach. Again, without any strokes gain data, it's a little bit difficult, but this is kind of my baseline, if you will, when I'm coming into a new course or a course without statistics. I'm always going to favor strokes gain approach, so 15% there. 5% in proximity 100 to 150. And again, this is kind of a little bit of a nod to that proximity chart from Pro Visualizer. Considering how long this course, or even though this course is pretty long, you get some wedge opportunities here. 386 par 4, 448. If you get a 300-yard drive, that's only 148. 450, 430, 410, 411. There are short par 4s here. So I wanted to see the players who are pretty good with their wedges. So proximity 100, 150. Didn't want to exclude the long par 5s or going for the green in par 5s. So 200 plus approaches. This also covers a little bit of the par 3s, considering all of the par 3s are over 200 yards except for the 11th at 192. Could very well play over 200, but maybe not considering the forecast. But this 200 plus is going to simulate a little bit of par 5, the par 3s, all of that. So 5% in each of these proximities. This is a little bit of a guess on my part. 10% birdies are better on long and very long courses, and 5% bogey avoidance as well. So I want to see, I think birdies are going to be more important than bogey avoidance, although with that forecast, I could be wrong with that. But for the most part, you'll get more scores under par than over par around Puerto Rico. So 10% in the birdies are better, 5% in the bogey avoidance, because there's not a whole lot of doubles around here. It's just avoiding bogeys. 5% each in the ranges, or in the par 4 ranges, 401 to 450, 451 to 500. Again, this is 9 of the 10 par 4s fall into these two ranges, with the other one being 386. So the ability to play short par 4s well and mid-length par 4s well is very paramount at Grand Reserve. And then lastly, this is ignoring the 600, the two 600 plus par 5s, but I think the way players are going to actually make some ground up on the par 5s is being able to eagle the two shorter par 5s. So I wanted to see who plays 501 to 550 par 5s the best. 10% there. There's a look at the mixed condition model. I don't have any putting in this mixed condition model. The reason being, the only past Palom putting data we get is from Vedanta. Yes, that is past Palom, but it's not here. So it's not a one-to-one comparison. So didn't feel comfortable putting any putting in this mixed condition model, although putting will obviously have a factor. But I don't have any putting, whether it's past Palom or just generally who's been putting well. And really, it didn't look like it mattered for these past winners. Like you see Carl Phillips here, not a great putter. He lost 3 strokes at the Cognizant last year before coming to Puerto Rico and winning. You see Nico Echeverria, terrible start to the year putting-wise before winning. Brandon Grace, terrible putter, terrible putting at least, before winning at Puerto Rico. Victor wasn't putting well before coming to Puerto Rico. So I didn't think the like the putting form mattered as much either. So that's why I don't have any past pound putting or recent putting form into this. No around the green. Around the green's pretty easy here. If players are having to rely around the green for much other than maybe on the par fives, they're going to get lapped by the field. So I didn't want any part of the around the green. If different proximity links matter, if it's the 150 to 175 or the 175 to 200, then I'll be weak to that. Sure. If the long par fives matter, the 600 plus par fives matter, sure, I'll be weak to that. I don't have much par 3 in here. That's where that 200 plus is kind of trying to cover that. But I don't have any par 3 specific performance. I'll be weak to that. But there's a look at the mixed condition model that I have for the Puerto Rico Open. Let's go ahead and go to my rankings. And a big shout out to Gabe. Even though he does not do anything for the alternate field events, he is kind enough to run his simulations for me on the alternate field event for ownership projections. So I'm very thankful for that. For your information, if you're a new viewer, and as a reminder for returning viewers, my rankings are based on 3 criteria. The rabbit hole rank. The rabbit hole will rank players based on the mixed condition model that we just talked about, metrics and percentages and all that. The rabbit hole will spit out a ranking. The course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value at how well they have played that course. I only go back 5 years, so you can agree or disagree with that, but I'm only going back 5 years. That's why RNP has a very immaculate course value, because he's only played here once, but it was a runner-up last year. You have players like Chad Ramey who are 3 for 3, never missing a cut, average finish of 16th, got a very, very good course value. Whereas you have some players who have just not been good here. Adams Vinson, 0 for 2 or 0 for 3 here, not very good. So that is what course value is. And the last part of my rankings, we are playing DFS. We're trying to find unique options off of our fellow contestants. So projected ownerships, and again, these are from Gabe. Those are a factor in my rankings as well. The more unique, the better. My rankings for the Puerto Rico Open go as such. RNP, Rasmus Nergard Peterson, even though he is the second most projected owned player at a third, which is ridiculous to think about, but RNP still number 1 thanks to the really good course value and being number 1 by the metrics. No disagreement here. I fired that wager off immediately when the Puerto Rico Open odds came out. I bet RNP quickly, so don't have any disagreement there. Marty Doe or Zaiching Doe is second. He's getting helped by the fact that he is fairly unique. You see, he's played here a couple times and it's been pretty bad. He did play well at the Cognizant last week. 6,800 Jeremy Paul is third. I do not agree with this at all. He is very, very unique. He did finish top 20 here. I think it was last year. It might have been in 2024. Pretty long hitter of the golf ball, as you can see, 27th in distance. The irons have been good. But I don't think he is consistent enough to be considered third. As you can see, the rabbit hole had him 16th, which is good, but not third. He's catapulting a lot because of this ownership and the fact that he finished top 20 in his one try. Seamus Power fourth. Jespers Vinson rounds out my top 5. Sudarshan Yellow Maraju 6th. ADDC 7th. Sam Ryder, John Perry, and Dylan Wu round out my top 10. Other than like Marty Doe, I don't think I'd have second. I can understand why, because the irons are very good right now. He's been pretty good at playing long courses. 20th off the tee on long courses, 19th birdies. Doesn't really have any horrible statistics across the board. I mean, it's fine. I wouldn't put him second. I really like Adrian Dumonte Chassart. He's getting hammered because he is so popular, but good in the wind, plenty of distance, plays these short par fives well. Really, his own bugaboo is the 100 to 150, but it hadn't stopped him from having a lot of success here in the past. So I like ADDC a lot. He's just very popular. Don't really have much issue with my top 10. Maybe not Dylan Wu, but even so, he's been okay. 10th in the wind performance. Top 15 birdies are better when it's long. I can understand why the model likes him, and he's pretty unique. So enough rambling. Let's sort on the price board just very quickly. See where our fellow contestants seem to be going at various areas of the price board and how we can maneuver around them. So not much to talk about in the 10Ks. In the 5 digits, it's only one player. It's Rasmus Højgaard. An astronomical Scotty Scheffler, like 43% projected ownership. I'm not going to be that high on Rasmus. I am playing Rasmus Højgaard, but not nearly that much. I'm going to have about half of this ownership, if you will. Probably somewhere in the 16 to 22% in terms of the mini lineups that I play for the Puerto Rico Open. So I'm going to be underweight on Rasmus. It's not a full fade, but I am going to be underweight on him because in the 9Ks, I'm all about some RNP. Number one player in my rankings. First wager I made. Didn't even really look at his odds. I just fired it off because I'm very confident about his performance this week. Second in the wind. Plenty of distance. Plays these extremely long courses very well. Third in the short par fives. You see the 200 plus procs is great. Not all that concerned with the 100 to 150. This guy is a premier talent waiting to bust out on the PGA Tour. So I really like RNP. If there's anybody I am full fading, it is Seabez. This does not feel like a good Christian Bezuidenhout course. It is long. There's not a lot of emphasis on around the green and putting. You can see how much Seabez struggles on long courses. This just does not feel like a good fit for Seabez. So he is the full fade in the 9Ks. I'm also not playing any Eric Cole. A little bit more concerned about that one, especially since he seems to be the pivot in the area. But I'm just going to be mixing and matching a whole lot of these players with RNP. So, I mean, one lineup will go Rasmus, Nergard Peterson, and David Ford. Next, I'll do RNP and Davis Thompson. Maybe I'll do RNP, Brennan, and Power and go a little bit lower on the price board. I'm just mixing and matching the rest of the 9Ks under RNP. I'm telling you, RNP is about 75 to 85% of my lineups. I'm just going to play a whole lot of RNP. And the rest of these players are fine. Castillo's fine. Davis Thompson's fine. David Ford's really intriguing if he really truly is only 12%. A lot of people are gravitating towards Michael Brennan. Very similar style tournament when he won this fall at the Black Desert Resort. You can kind of free wheel driver there as long as you're not hitting it onto a different planet. Pretty forgiving. Yeah, so I can understand the love for Brennan, but he is very popular. So David Ford's kind of interesting being the pivot, but he has not performed well in the wind in his very small sample size. First strokes gained approach, though, in 2026 in this field. So, good, bad, take your pick. Seamus Power is interesting as well. Even though he doesn't have a whole lot of distance, he's very good in the wind. Plays these long courses extremely well. I like Seamus. It's fine. Moving down into the 8s. I just don't know enough about Chisara. I believe he was playing on Live. I could be wrong with that. But none of the statistics really stand out of what we have because he obviously hasn't played PGA Tour in 2026. I just don't know enough about him, but he is priced 8,900 for a reason. So it seems like somebody knows something. So I'm not there. Matt Wallace, I wanted to like Matt Wallace, but man, he's been pretty bad here. He's good in the wind. That's about all he has going for him, as you can see. So, Instead, in the 8Ks, I really like Chad Ramey. He's been excellent here, good in the wind. He won at a comparison course or a comparable course, the Corrales. He won the Corrales 3 years ago now, I believe it was. This guy just likes Caribbean golf. So take a long look at Chad Ramey. John Perry rated out extremely well. I'll play some John Perry. I like A.J. Ewert coming off of his very, very successful Cognizant Classic. It's fine. Chris Ventura, fine. Marty Doe, even though he rated second, I'm not that high on him, but it's fine. Like, again, much of these 8K players, other than Chad Ramey, much of these 8K, and I'll even throw Vince Whaley in here. Much of these 8K players, I'm just kind of mixing and matching. RNP, a 9K, and an 8K. That's kind of how I'm going about it this week. The only exception to that in the 8Ks is Matty Schmid. He is very, very popular. I wish I could recommend, to get away from that. I can't. I love Matty Schmid this week. This is another wager I made. Excellent off the tee. He's been excellent here. Not worried about the irons. He's generally not the best iron player anyway. He's much more off the tee focused, and you can see that by his performance here. So I love Matty Schmid. I wish this ownership wasn't as high. It is what it is. This is some chalk I'll eat. Moving into the sevens. In the upper sevens, there's not a whole lot I like here. I know Jesper Vincent rated well, but he generally plays his best on short courses. Yes, he's good in the wind. Yes, he's the number one off the tee player on long and very long courses because of his distance. I don't know. Every time I seem to like Jesper Vincent, it goes sideways for me. So I'm going to play Jesper Vincent very cautiously. But nothing really else in the upper sevens strikes my fancy because I'm going into the mid sevens a lot. Sudarshan, talked him up a whole lot, I believe, is at Waste Management. And he played okay. I'm going to go to Sudarshan a metric ton this week. I am well overweight on this 11.5%. I am probably 50 to 60% Sudarshan. Love everything about him. He's been great in the wind. Small sample size, but he's been great in the wind. Whole lot of distance. Top 15 in irons. The only thing that is his bugaboo, at least statistically, has been avoiding bogeys on long and very long courses. Again, this is a very, very small sample size. So with his long iron proficiency, his wedge proficiency, his distance, his irons, I think this sets up very, very well for Sudarshan. Sam Ryder rated out well. I'll play some Sam Ryder as well. Irons are still good. He's played okay around here. Not great, but he's played okay. So these two at 7,500 I like. Zach Bauschow, I'll mention him at 7,400. Not too bad. ADDC, overwhelmingly popular. Again, much like Matty Schmid, I'm going to play a whole lot of ADDC. This is just chalk I'll eat. I'm going all in on ADDC. You probably can't play like 25 to 30% of ADDC. You either have to go 50% and above or full fading if he's this chalky. So I'm just going to go all in on ADDC. I really like him this week. Dylan Wu, fine. 10th in wind performance. Plays pretty well on these long courses. Elsewhere in the low sevens, even though he didn't rate out well, I'm going to ride the hot hand a little bit with Jimmy Stanger. Coming off of his, really good Cognizant performance. Stanger also finished third here in 2024. Might have been 2023. Familiar with the course, comfortable with the course. Not too worried about the irons, considering how well he played at the Cognizant. I'm just going to mention him. I'll play him. It's not a whole lot, but I'll play him. And then somebody that I am speculative about is Davis Riley. If I make any more wagers at the Puerto Rico Open, the next one I make is Davis Riley. You see he's played pretty well here, pretty low ownership. Nothing really stands out statistically. I don't know. It's just a kind of a gut feeling I have. Kind of like what I've seen with Davis Riley. And then in the sixes, it's always dangerous to go into the 6Ks on an alternate field event. But if you're willing to do it, you're going to be very, very popular, considering almost everyone and their brother and sister and mother and niece and whoever, their neighbor, is stopping at ADDC. If you're willing to go down into the 6Ks, you're going to get some uniqueness. So I'll highlight a couple here. Again, I'm not all that high on Jeremy Paul, but he rated out extremely well just because he's very unique and he's played well here. So I'll mention him. Don't hate it. Again, everything about Kyron Van Week is from last year, who finished fourth, but he was very good in the wind. First and birdies are better on long courses. Again, this is just from last year's Puerto Rico Open. Take that for what you will, but at least he knows the course. John Vanderlaan's kind of interesting as well. Plenty of distance, but can really, really spray it, which is a little bit forgiving here. So kind of interesting. But the Mad Scientist play for the Puerto Rico Open, even though he is more chalky, or he is the highest projected owned player in the sixes, I don't care. It's Bryce Garnett. 5 for 5. Never missed a cut here. Coming off of, I think he missed the cut at the Cognizant. Maybe he made the cut. I don't remember. But he's just played very well at the Puerto Rico Open. Plays well in the wind. Former champion here. Yeah, I'm just going to play Bryce Garnett in the 6Ks if I'm ever down here. Along with maybe a sprinkling of Jeremy Paul, sprinkling of John Vanderlaan. But yeah, it's mostly Bryce Garnett. But I'm not down in the 6Ks very much. I don't need to be. I feel like I can find a lot of uniqueness and build unique lineups without having to go down there. Okay, let's build a chalky lineup for the Puerto Rico Open and then how we're going to maneuver around them. I mean, obviously it starts with Rasmus and then ADC is the bottom here. 23%. That's hilariously a lot. Maddie Schmid is in this. Whoops. Maddie Schmid, who I really like. So, I mean, I'm playing both of these guys a whole lot. So, I'm going to have to find uniqueness elsewhere. I feel like I can do that. I guess this is Suter Sean, considering he's at 11.5%. Well, if I could spell it, Suter Sean, Raju. There we go. 84.50 per. You know what? I take that back. Doug Ginn might be in this, which leaves 9,100, which is Seamus Power. Oh, if I can get 200 more, I can get to Michael Brennan. And that's where it's really at. Look, I understand that this is 200 over, but I'm just trying to highlight the chalky players in their areas of the price board. I'm very confident that most lineups for the Puerto Rico Open are bottoming out at ADDC. So, maneuver that how you will. Maybe this is Rasmus Nergard Peterson. I just use Højgaard since he's the most projected owned player. But that's what a common lineup is going to look like this week. So how are we going to maneuver around them? You can go balanced if you want and fade the two big names. I don't like that really because I'm all in on RNP. But if you wanted to do that, you could do something like Seamus. For me, I'm kind of interested in David Ford. off of Michael Brennan, although I understand why Brennan is, pretty popular. I'd go to David Ford, and maybe you go something like Ricky Castillo, and just get off of the big chalk here. Maybe you don't have to use Ford or Power or Castillo. Like, just do more of a more balanced build. You probably can't do Matty Schmid with this. ADDC would be a little bit problematic, but why don't we do something like Jimmy Stanger? Going to get you a lot of uniqueness. Finished top 5 here a couple years ago. Again, Sudarshan isn't going to kill you, especially if you're using Jimmy Stanger and getting away from the two big names up top. 73, yeah, let's just do it. It's Adrian. It's ADDC. So even with that glutton, you're still hovering right at the 80 to 82% total ownership. It's fine. You might get duplicated once, but you got a fairly unique lineup here, getting away from, Rasmus and RNP. That's kind of like the balanced way to go about it. If you wanted to get real greedy, again, Bryce Garnett's the most popular 6K play, so I have problems recommending him. You could go to like Jeremy Paul, Garnett, Kyron Van Wyk. I'm going to go to like John Vanderlaan here. I know he's 5%, but Vanderlaan's played well here as well. And get like super greedy up here. Rasmus and Rasmus. Go Højgaard and RNP. Probably can't fit a second 9 into this, but you could easily do like an 8. Go like AJ Ewert, John Perry, makes sense. Vince Whaley. Do like a Vince Whaley in here at sub 10% seems pretty darn good. Coming down again, this would be like Sudarshan. Gosh dang it, Sudarshan. Yalamaraju. There. That leaves you 7,200. Again, ADDC is a little bit too much. Look, I know this total ownership looks pretty ugly. It's just the fact that you've got the two big guns. If you're coming down to John Vanderlaan, you're using Vince Whaley. You get another fairly unique low 7. Davis Riley. Why not Davis Riley? This is going to be pretty unique, I think, this week. Again, I wouldn't get too worried about this total ownership. It's gonna spike because you're using the two big guns, but it's the fact that you just get pretty greedy up top, using both big names, coming down to an 8K that you like. I said Vince Whaley, but it could be Marty Doe, it could be Chris Ventura, AJ Ewert. I love Sudarshan, but you can come off Sudarshan if you're not a big believer. Davis Riley, John Vanderlaan, and if you're not worried about Bryce Garnett, like you could come down to Bryce Garnett and really come off some of the ownership in that regard. So, but the way I've been going about it this week, I too am bottoming out my lineups at ADDC. I am all in on Sudarshan. Yalamaraju. There we go. Again, I'm 75 to 85% RNP, so I'm going up there. I'm mixing and matching from here. Like, those three are heavy core for me this week, or at least for the Puerto Rico Open. I'm mixing a 9K and I'm mixing an 8K. So let's just do let's do a Davis Thompson. Let's do an AJ Ewert. Leaves me 73. That's a little bit more on the upper end. Like, if I come off Thompson to go to like Brennan Ford or Power, it's fine. If I go to like Chad Ramey, and come down, it's fine. But you see, I'm just mixing and matching. And then finding a 73 here, like this could be Dylan Wu, this could be Jimmy Stanger, Davis Riley. Maybe I go into the 6Ks once or twice. So my core for the week is Chad Ramey, Matty Schmid, Suter Sean, Raju, and Sart. Gosh dang it. Davis Riley's a little bit. This is basically my core. I'll highlight Davis Riley's a little bit less in terms, but like RNP, Suter Sean, ADDC, Matty Schmid, highlight them in green. Like I'm using boatloads of all of those guys. So that's what I have for a look into the Puerto Rico Open this week. Thanks to Echoes for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. Always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Reminder that even though tonight is the Puerto Rico, I will be back tomorrow night for the DFS Tactics show for the Arnold Palmer Invitational, so no worries. We will still be covering the big tournament of the week. So thanks again for all the support. Very much appreciated for all of the wagers you have made for the Puerto Rico Open, for all the DFS contests you play for the Puerto Rico Open. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Arnold Palmer DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.